I didn't understand how little my family thought of my time until the afternoon my dad joked that I was their built-in babysitter, and everyone laughed except me. Most days I work long shifts as a line cook at a small diner. It's noisy, hot, and the pay is nothing special, but it keeps me afloat. I rent a modest one-bedroom apartment, live simply, and mind my own business. I never thought of my life as empty, but my family always acted like it was. My parents still live in the house my siblings and I grew up in. Dad's a mechanic with hands permanently stained from grease. Mom works part-time at a thrift store and still tries to handle everything herself, even when she's clearly exhausted. They mean well, but they're set in their ways. My younger sister Lena is the favorite. She's a hairdresser who somehow always has new clothes, new makeup, new photos to post online. She still lives at home, claiming she's saving, though it looks more like my parents cover half her life while she enjoys the rest. She has a daughter, Mia, a sweet kid who deserves better than being shuffled around for convenience. For years, it seemed natural that I was the one everyone called. Need a ride? Ask me. Need help moving something heavy? Me again. Need someone to watch Mia for just an hour? Definitely me. I told myself I was being a good son, a good brother, but the pattern kept growing, and at some point the requests turned into assumptions. That Sunday, we were all at my parents' place eating store-bought chicken. Mia was scribbling on junk mail. Lena scrolled on her phone. Mom washed dishes, even though she shouldn't have been standing that long. Dad took a sip of beer and said, "Lucky we've got our own babysitter," nodding at me. It felt like someone pressed a thumb into my chest. "I have a life too, you know," I said. Dad shrugged. "You're responsible. You don't go out much. You're free." Free, as if not having kids meant I had no right to say no. After that, I started seeing everything more clearly. Every early morning call from Mom because she didn't want to bother Lena. Every drop-off where Lena arrived late, but still thanked me like she was doing me a favor. Every time my parents bragged about what a good kid I was while handing me another responsibility. Then Mom's health began to slip. It started small, dizziness, fatigue, but soon she needed regular appointments. Dad couldn't always leave work. Lena claimed she couldn't cancel clients. So I rearranged my schedule, used up sick days, and sat in waiting rooms while thinking about the tips I was missing. I didn't resent helping Mom. I resented being the only one expected to. One night, Mom called and asked me to come over. Her voice was serious in a way that made my stomach tense. When I arrived, Dad and Lena were already seated at the kitchen table. My mom folded her hands and said, "We need to talk about the house." The way Lena avoided my eyes told me they'd already talked plenty before I showed up. Dad slid a packet of papers across the table, like he was handing me a bill. "We met with someone who helps families sort things out ahead of time," he said, "just to keep things simple later." I hadn't touched the papers yet, but something in the room felt off. Lena sat straighter than usual, like she was trying to look mature. Mom's hands were trembling just enough for me to notice. Mom spoke gently. "We want the house handled in a way that's fair." That word, fair, hit me wrong. I'd spent months driving her to appointments, months covering for everyone else, and somehow we were discussing fairness without me until the very end. I unfolded the top sheet, and the first thing I saw was Lena's name listed as the person who would inherit the house. Not share it, not split it, not anything close to equal, just Lena. My name wasn't anywhere on it. I felt the kind of quiet shock that doesn't explode, just sinks deep and cold. "So, I just don't exist in this plan?" I asked. Dad frowned like I was being dramatic. "You're doing fine on your own," he said. "You've got your apartment, your job. This house is better suited for Lena and Mia. They need stability. And I don't?" The words came out too soft, almost like I wasn't sure I had the right to ask. Mom reached for my hand, but I pulled back. "Honey, you're the independent one. Lena struggles. You know that." Lena didn't look the slightest bit ashamed. If anything, she looked relieved. "It's not personal," she said. "It's just what makes sense." The room felt smaller by the second. I couldn't believe they'd sat there making decisions about a house I practically lived in these past months, supporting them through everything, while Lena breezed through life untouched by responsibility. "And what about all the care I'm giving you?" I asked quietly. "The appointments, the errands, the days I take off work. Dad crossed his arms. That's not about inheritance. That's family helping family. Family helping family. Funny how that only applied to me. Mom looked guilty for a moment, but she didn't speak up. The realization hit with a sickening weight. To them, my support wasn't love or sacrifice. It was expected maintenance, something automatic, something they didn't think twice about. I folded the papers neatly, slid them back, and said, "You could have talked to me before deciding all this." Dad dismissed it with a short wave. "It's better this way. No confusion." Lena gave me a tiny shrug, almost apologetic, but not enough to matter. "It's not like you wanted the house anyway." I didn't trust myself to respond. I stood up slowly, as if any sudden movement would crack me open in front of them. "I need to get back home," I said. Mom called after me. "We still love you, sweetheart." But it sounded more like a Band-Aid than comfort. I walked out feeling like the air was heavier than gravity itself. I got into my car, shut the door, and just sat there. My throat tightened, not with tears, but with the kind of anger that builds quietly and painfully, settling under your ribs. For the first time in my life, I felt genuinely disposable. Useful, but disposable. Over the next few days, things didn't get better. Lena acted as if the conversation never happened. Dad asked me to drive Mom to a follow-up appointment like nothing had changed. Mom texted me reminders for grocery runs. Every message made my stomach turn. I wasn't ready to confront them yet, but something was different in me now. Every request sounded like another way of saying, "Your life doesn't matter as much as ours." The breaking point came the following week. I had just finished a brutal shift at the diner, too many customers and too few hands. I was closing up when Lena called. Not asked, called. "Mom needs groceries," she said. "I'm busy tonight. Can you get them?" "I'm exhausted," I said. "I just worked 11 hours. She sighed loudly like I was the one inconveniencing her. "You're closer to the store. Just do it, okay?" And something in me finally snapped. Not loud, not dramatic. It was a quiet click somewhere in my mind. A realization. They weren't going to stop using me. Not unless I made them. That night, driving home with my hands gripping the wheel too tightly, I made a promise to myself. I would stop being the automatic yes. I would stop letting them treat my life like spare change. And if they insisted on seeing me as nothing more than a resource, then I would let them find out what happens when that resource disappears. But not emotionally, not angrily, not impulsively. No, I would be smart about it. I would be patient, and I would make sure they understood exactly what they'd taken for granted. Once I made the decision, I didn't announce it. I didn't confront anyone. I didn't post some dramatic message or demand an apology. Instead, I started doing something foreign to my family. I set boundaries, quiet ones, precise ones, and I watched what happened when the safety net they'd relied on started thinning under their feet. The first step was simple. I stopped volunteering information. If I wasn't available, I just said, "Sorry, I can't," without explanation. When Mom texted asking if I could take her to an appointment, I replied, "I'm working that day. You'll need to ask Lena or Dad." I didn't elaborate. I didn't justify. I just gave them back what they'd been ignoring. Responsibility. They didn't take it well. Lena called me one afternoon with a tone that already assumed guilt. "Mom says you can't take her tomorrow." "Why not? You're always free." "I'm not," I said calmly. "You'll have to work it out." She let out a humorless laugh. "I have clients." "Then reschedule," I said. "That's what I've been doing for months." That silenced her. Not because she understood, but because she'd never considered the actual cost of my help. But the real shift came when I started documenting things, not for revenge in a dramatic sense, but for clarity. Every appointment I'd covered, every shift I'd given up, every time Lena dropped off Mia hours earlier than promised. I didn't need it for court or anything extreme. I needed it to remind myself I wasn't imagining the imbalance. I also began stepping back from the household tasks they'd quietly assigned to me. Dad's errands? He handled them. Mom's groceries? Lena suddenly discovered the store wasn't that far. Mia's babysitting? I said, "Not this week," until Lena finally asked Dad instead. With each no, the house of cards tilted a little more. The second phase was letting natural consequences play out. I didn't interfere when Lena double-booked herself and panicked because she had no one to watch Mia. I didn't jump in when Dad forgot an appointment Mom needed. I let them sit in the discomfort they'd always handed to me. Mom, to her credit, noticed first. "I don't want to be a burden," she said softly one afternoon when she called. Her voice cracked a little. "But I feel like everything's falling apart." "You're not a burden," I said gently. "But it can't all fall on one person. That's not fair to anyone." She didn't argue. She only sighed, sounding tired in a way that wasn't physical. Dad, however, doubled down. "You're acting selfish," he told me one evening. "We raised you better than this." "Did you?" I asked quietly. "Or did you just get used to me never pushing back?" He didn't answer. But the real turning point was the house. A week after I stepped back, Lena texted me saying, "We need to go over the paperwork again. Dad wants everything finalized." That single message sparked the last step of my plan. Instead of arguing about the house, I suggested something perfectly reasonable. If Lena's getting the house, she should handle the things that come with it. Maintenance, helping Mom, helping Dad. Homeowners step up. I said it in a calm, matter-of-fact tone. No sarcasm, no bite, just logic. Dad insisted that wasn't the point. "The house is for Lena's future," he said. "Then her responsibilities should reflect that future," I replied. Mom stayed silent but looked shaken, like she was finally connecting dots she'd avoided. From that point forward, I stuck to a quiet strategy. Retreat. Not dramatic, not cutting ties, just stepping back far enough that they could feel the absence they'd ignored. I didn't offer rides. I didn't show up for chores. I didn't let them push the burden back onto me. And slowly, very slowly, the cracks started forming between them instead of through me. Lena failed to take Mom to an appointment because she overslept. Dad forgot to refill Mom's prescription. The house repairs Dad kept putting off became impossible to ignore. And with each missed task, each oversight, each moment where I normally would have bailed them out, the reality settled on their shoulders. They needed me. Not as a babysitter, not as a backup parent, not as a default solution. They needed me because without my constant effort, everything slipped. The final part of my plan wasn't revenge in the traditional sense. It was simply letting the truth reveal itself. And it did, just not in the way any of them expected. It didn't take long for the fallout to reach me. Not through an apology, of course. My family has always preferred frustration over reflection. It came as a series of small crises, each one a problem I used to prevent before it ever reached their doorstep. The first was Mom missing a follow-up appointment because Lena wrote the time down wrong. Dad called me afterward, irritated but trying to hide it. "Your sister messed up," he said. "You should have just handled it." "I wasn't told about it," I answered. "And I'm not the only adult in this family." He muttered something and hung up. The second came when the water heater broke. Normally, Dad would call me to help haul parts or do the driving. This time, he called Lena first. She didn't answer for hours. When she finally did, she said she was too busy and told him to ask the repair guy. Dad hated paying for anything he thought he could fix himself. He ended up spending twice what it would have cost to replace the part properly. The third was the one that shifted everything. Mom had a bad dizzy spell while Dad was at work. Lena was supposed to stop by around noon. She didn't. She claimed later that she lost track of time. Mom ended up calling a neighbor for help. When Dad found out, he was furious. At Lena, not me. That was new. A few days later, Mom called me, her voice fragile. "I'm sorry," she said. "We've put too much on you. I didn't see it clearly until now." She paused. "We should have talked to you before making decisions about the house. It wasn't fair." I didn't rush to comfort her. I just said gently, "I needed you to understand how it felt." "I do now," she said. Dad wasn't ready to admit anything, but his tone changed. He stopped assuming. He started asking. That alone was enough to show the message had landed. Lena, though, she took the longest to unravel. The reality of being the future homeowner started hitting her harder than she expected. Dad told her she'd need to contribute more. Repairs, bills, time helping Mom. She pushed back, hard. "I didn't ask for that," she snapped one night, loud enough I heard it through the phone when Mom called me afterward. Mom sighed. "Your sister thought the house was a gift, not a responsibility." I didn't say it out loud, but that was exactly the problem. They'd promised her the reward of adulthood, without expecting the work. Eventually, they paused everything. No final signatures, no more paperwork. Dad said they needed to rethink things. Mom hinted they might split things evenly or set conditions, but I didn't press. This wasn't about getting the house. It was about getting my life back. One quiet Sunday, I visited them for dinner. No errands, no obligations, just a meal. It was the first time in years I didn't feel like I was reporting for duty. Mom seemed lighter. Dad looked tired but calmer. Even Lena kept her comments to herself, her eyes drifting away from mine whenever the subject of helping came up. After dinner, while Lena took Mia outside, Mom touched my arm. "You taught us something," she said. "We took advantage without meaning to. You deserve better." I nodded. "I just needed balance." Dad cleared his throat. "We're going to start handling more things ourselves," he said. "You help when you can, not because you have to." Those words weren't an apology, but coming from him, they were close enough. When I left that night, the air felt different, lighter, like I'd walked out of a role I never agreed to play. In the days that followed, I helped when I chose to. Not every time, not automatically, just enough to stay connected without losing myself. Lena handled more of the responsibilities she'd been avoiding. Dad paid for proper repairs. Mom made sure appointments were discussed instead of assumed. The house situation was never fully settled while I was there, and honestly, I didn't need it to be. What mattered was that the imbalance was exposed and the burden finally divided. My revenge wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It wasn't about punishing anyone. It was about showing them the shape of the hole I'd been filling by myself, about letting them feel it long enough to understand. And once they did, once the weight finally spread across all three of them instead of crushing me alone, I felt something I hadn't in years. Peace. Not the kind that comes from winning. The kind that comes from no longer being the only one carrying everything.